All right, good morning, everybody. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this morning. With me today on the panel are Mr. Jerry Arnell and Mr. Kent Seelan. Representing the Assessment and Taxation Department is Ms. Corrine DeRockney, and our administrative personnel today is Ms. Fran Picotta. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of property are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 11 on our docket today. Ms. Picotta, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Karine Doraki.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, we will begin with number 1 on this morning's docket, 607 Lorette Avenue. Mr. Rockney, please proceed when you are ready.
Madam Chair, file number 24-3398, roll number 12020077500 for the address of 607 Lorette Avenue. We do have a recommendation of $915,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. And I am under the impression that Mr. Navarro is in agreement of this revised value.
Mr. Navarro?
That's correct. I am.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just reviewing something for 1 second. All right, thank you. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan, do you have any questions?
Yes, how did we come about the recommendation?
Sorry?
How did we come about the recommendation? Was my question.
Yes, of course. We made an amendment to the rental rate from $9.63 to $8.68.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, one second, please. Okay, I do not have any questions then. Thank you very much. We can move on to the second matter on the docket, which is 1364 Clifton Street. Madam Assessor, when you're ready.
Thank you. File number 24-3453, roll number 1301053520 for the address of 1364 Clifton Street. We are defending the assessed value of $1,085,000 for the 2025 rule year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of one building with 8 premises with 1 story, an actual and effective year built of 1971, a wall height of 14 feet, a leasable area of 12,132 square feet, and a land to plan area of 2.15. On our page 3 has our maps. It is in the Pacific Industrial area off of Notre Dame Avenue. There's exterior photos on page 4 and 5. Some aerial views on page 6 and 7. On our page 8 has our rent comparables. They are net rents from the market in which our model is based off of. We've provided 7 rent comparables with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 1147 to 870 square feet, wall height of 11 to 19 feet, an effective year build of 1973 to 1979, and a net rent of $6.75 to $12.75 per square foot. All of these comparables are flex warehouses like the subject, as well as in the same market region. Our page 9 has our income workup. The 8 premises add up to 12,132 square feet. It has a blended rent of $7.23 per square foot, in which provide a potential rent of $87,717. We've reduced that by vacancy loss of 4%, plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $79,741. We've capitalized that at 7.35%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,084,912, rounded up to $1,085,000. Our capitalization rates are located on page 11. You'll find the industrial range of 5.35 at the 20th percentile to 7.30 at the 80th percentile. Our 7.35 is higher than the industrial range of the 80th percentile. Page 13 through 18 is the income and expense questionnaire we've received. On page 15, the net income is checked off with the rent income of $56,922 and the total leasable area of $11,840. Provides a $4.81 rent. In which was verified on page 16 as well. We do believe that the assessed value of $1,085,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions for the assessor?
No, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions for the assessor?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
You inspected this property,
Have not, no.
and this is all model driven with respect to the numbers here.
It is, yes.
It is. The cap rate is higher than your 80th percentile. Why would the model have driven the cap rate up, in your opinion?
That is a good question. I would say with the wall height being low, as well as the effective year built, possibly those 2 features, in my own opinion.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I have no questions. So Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to ask the panel to go to page 16. I believe we have already had a description of the property, so I don't think we need to do it again. So we've gone with a $6 rent, mainly based on actuals. However, if you do turn back to page 12 and see the set of comparables that we used to verify whether the actual rents were in line with the market, we do believe that they are in line with the market at $6. Show our projected gross income is 71,083. We've applied a 4% vacancy ratio to it, or vacancy to that, and we get an effective market income of 68,240. We have expense allowances of $3,942, giving us a net operating income of $64,298. After reviewing the assessor's information, I believe in terms of the capitalization rate that we used at 8%, we do believe that we are high on it. And the 735 cap rate that the assessor has used, in our opinion, is good. So if we use the assessor's cap rate, it would require some recalculation of our figures. We believe that our net operating income is good, but the cap rate was slightly high. So with a 735 cap rate and $64,298 in net operating income, we get a value of $874,802, or $875,000 rounded. And in terms of the appendix, we included the same information that the assessor has included, which is just some basic property information that we've downloaded from city records, and also the income and expenses that were submitted by the owners showing that they were compliant. So I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Arnell?
No, I don't at this time. Thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. Thank you very much. Move on to the next property on the docket. Sorry, just give me 1 second. That would be, 589 Henry Avenue. So, Madam Assessor, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 24-2142, roll number 13092180100 for the address of 589 Henry Avenue. We are defending the assessed value of $1,102,000 for the 2025 rural year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 4 buildings with 3 premises. The actual year build is 1912 to 1978. We do have an effective year build of 1937. Leasable area of 47,768 and a land to plan area of 1.17. Maps are provided on page 3, showing it is in the Dufferin Industrial Area near Higgins Avenue off of Salter Street. Exterior photos on page 4 and 5 through 6. And aerial photos, page 6 through 9. Our rent comparables are provided on page 10. Few of these comparables are the same loft warehouses. Others are storage warehouses. However, all are in the same market region. We provided 9 rent comparables with leasing starting in 2018 to 2021, an area range of 5,100 to 20,200 square feet, wall height of 12 to 22 feet, an effective year build of 1917 to 1954, and a net rent of $1.82 to $13.46 per square foot. Our income workup is on page 11. The 3 premises add up to 47,768 square feet, has a blended rent of $3.42 per square foot, has a potential rent of $159,721. We reduced that by a vacancy loss of 15%, plus expenses at 3%, the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of a $103,029. We've capitalized that at 9.35%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,101,914, in which we rounded up to $1,102,000. Page 13 shows our capitalization rates. Our 9.35 is much higher than the 80th percentile of our industrial range. Page 15 through 20 is the income and expense questionnaire we received, indicating not applicable. So we believe that this property is owner occupied. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,102,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions?
Just the one question, the 15% vacancy, that is the market vacancy as per the City of Winnipeg's study, correct?
Sorry, what was your question exactly?
Sorry, the 15% vacancy is in the City of Winnipeg's, I'm just going to quote what it's actually called, the report. The Valuation of Income Producing Properties 2025 General Assessment. Show that is noted in that report that loft warehouses receive 15%. That would be the reason, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. I think that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, any questions?
Just on your comparables on page 10, nothing comes close to the 47,000 square feet, right?
What I did here was individual leasable area. Because currently only one of the premises is being occupied. So that's what I did there. I just broke it up separately.
So even the smallest one is 33,000 square feet, right? On the
Yeah, your 20,000 is as considerable. Yeah, it was also difficult finding the same type with the loft warehouse.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
No
Thank you
problem.
very much. Mr. Seelan, any questions?
My question is being asked and answered, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm just reviewing this. Nope. Okay. I have no questions then. So Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, this is 589 Henry Avenue. On page 2, you can see our assessment summary. If you turn to page 6, you can see some of the pictures that we've detailed for you. Primarily outside pictures and overhead and the general area. So this one is located next to the CP yards. And on page 8, you can see a property description. So this is an important page because it basically details the property as a whole, starting with the 4 structures that are there. The first one was built in 1921. The last one was built in 1978. In total, there are about 62,816 square feet. That's gross. And I believe we are only accounting for about 47,768. You can see on page 8, about halfway in some bold text, that approximately half the property is not used. And the variant age is cited as 1939. So if we turn to page 12, you can see a description of the rentable area and the market rent that we chose for this property. So we don't dispute the 47,768 square feet. We have a set of comparables there, mainly based on area. Difficult to find comparables for this one because, well, frankly, there just aren't enough loft warehouses this time that are being used as loft warehouses, especially this style, this older style of loft warehouse. So finding rents is difficult. However, we've broken it up into the different areas that we see. So there are three main areas: 22,360, 17,656, and 7752 in terms of square feet. Total 47,768. The overall rent that we've applied is $292 per square foot. The vacancy is 15%. We've applied a $6 per square foot shortfall. Now, looking at this, I think this may have been a mistake, but the thought afterwards was that if this property is if only about half of this property is being used, then technically it probably should have a slightly higher shortfall. So we're comfortable keeping it at 6. And in terms of non-recoverable expenses, that's also, there's a slight error there. So this should be 3% in total in terms of the non-recoverable and the other structural. And you can see that there's 4% there. So if Madam Chair would allow me, I can quickly calculate this out and correct that. That is fine to do?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I nodded. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, so up to the effective market income, we are okay on page 16. So 118,437 is the effective market income. Shortfall, we've kept at 42,991. And we've erased that 1% there. So all we have is 35,553. The expense allowance is 46,544. The net operating income then becomes 71,893. Capitalized at 9.50, that is 756,768, or 757,000 rounded. Beyond that, just the usual suspects, the property information, the income and expenses submitted. So I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicants?
Thank you. Yes, I just have one in regards to your rent on page 12. In looking at the comparables, providing the average and median, how did you come about getting those figures below that table, your comparables, to reach your $2.92?
Right. So I believe that the size maxes out at about 16,825. So the largest premise that we have, or individual breakup in terms of size, is 22,360. So we would have adjusted that downward slightly based on just the size differential. 17,656. I mean, there's one at 15,385, and there is one at 16,267, one at 15,746. Those are comparable, but you know, not to beat this fact in, it's not a great location. So we wouldn't have assigned a very high rent to this property anyways. So that would account for the low rent.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnell. Any questions?
My question's been asked, thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
Yeah, just one question. You mentioned half the properties being used. Is there any reason that only half the property is actually being used?
I don't know the reason for that, Mr. Seelan. I imagine it probably has something to do with the age of the property itself, and whether, these space may be functional, and whether it's, safe to use. Joe, I mean, I've been through this type of loft warehouse before, not this one specifically, but there are some issues with this type of structure because they tend to have wooden floors, those types of things that sometimes degrade over time. I've seen some where it's an infestation. It can be many things, but it is primarily due to the age, I would believe. I would think.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Chair.
Thank you. My questions have been answered. So we can move on to the next matter. The next matter on the docket is 328 William Avenue. Madam Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
File number 24-2999, roll number 1306102050 for the address of 328 William Avenue. We are defending the assessed value of $1,144,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 2 buildings with 2 premises, 1 story, an actual year build of 1912 to 1927, an effective year build of 1924, wall height of 13 to 14 feet, leasable area 9,855 square feet, with a land to plan area of 1.36. Maps are provided on page 3. It is near Hargrave Street and Adelaide Street off of Main Street. Exterior photos are provided on page 4 through 6. Aerial views, page 6 through 7. Our rent comparables are provided on page 8. We have provided 6 of them with leasing starting in 2018 to 2021, an area range of 33,033 to 14,519 square feet, wall height of 12 to 22 feet, an effective year build of 1917 to 1930, and a net rent of $4 to $19.40 per square foot. Our income workup is on page 9. The 2 premises add up to 9,855 square feet, has a blended rent of $9.52 per square foot, provide a potential rent of $93,850. We reduce that by a vacancy loss of 4%, plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $85,816. We've capitalized that at 7.5%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,144,213, in which we rounded down to $1,144,000. Page 11 shows our capitalization rates. Our 7.5 is higher than the 80th percentile of our industrial range. Income and expense questionnaire is page 13 through 14, advising of a gross income type with the rental income of $132,618 and the leasable area of 10,044 square feet. Provide the actuals as $13.20 is what I gather. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,144,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions for the assessor?
Just regarding the comparables that you have on page 8, you'd agree that you only have one property that is effectively close to 10,000 square feet, correct?
Correct. I was actually trying to find them as individual as
Okay.
well here.
Okay. And I assume that in terms of the capitalization rate, the model is making adjustments for the age of the property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I believe that's it then. Thank you.
Sorry, one second, please. I'm just making a note. I write slow, sorry. Okay. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
Just one in regards to the square footage. Why would you use 9855 when they show you an actual of 10,044?
Well, that's what they're indicating, but we've always had it in our records as 9855. So I'm not sure which is correct, but if they added some space somewhere, we have not been notified. That makes sense.
Well, okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Yeah, we often get information that doesn't make sense to us of what we've had on our record. And if there hasn't been a permit, and they haven't, I guess, notified us through a phone call, then it's difficult for us to go and inspect, I guess, with receiving an income and expense questionnaire, especially when it's very close to the same thing.
It's close, but there is difference, and I'm just saying why
Yeah.
that would trigger an inspection, but that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, it should.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, do you have any questions?
Yes, what did you calculate the actual rent as? You mentioned $13 and something cents. Could you just reconfirm?
Yeah, with page 13, I got a $13.20.
20 cents?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the confirmation. Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
I suppose it would change depending on the square feet as well, I should say, now that we've noticed that. I believe with our square feet, because I did it as per what I've seen their income and expense questionnaire, with our 9855 square feet would be $12.23. So I had both.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm just reading through my notes here. No, I think I'm good. All right, thank you. Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, so we are dealing with 328 William Avenue. I'll ask the panel just to switch to page 16. So there's a single tenant here. They're known as the Little Brown Jug. I believe they are a brewing company. And we've applied a $6 rent to this. Now, I think it's important to remind the panel also that this is a single tenancy. So we've calculated this at the full 10,044 square feet. So one thing that I did notice in the assessor's evaluation is that the rent is broken up into effectively two premises. And that does do something to the model rate. So when you have smaller areas, the model will generate a higher rent. However, in this case, we don't believe that that should be the case. It's just a 10,044 square foot lease. So it should be calculated that way. And that is effectively what drives down the rent, is that larger overall size. So we've assigned a $6 rent to this area. That produces a market income of $60,264. The comparisons that we used are on page 12. And they range basically from the low 6,000s right up to almost 9,500 square feet. And then you can see that the average is 592, the medium is 598, varying wall heights starting at about 14 feet and going all the way up to 31 square feet or 31 feet. And in terms of the vacancy allowance, let's flip back to 16. So we have a vacancy of 4%, an effective market income of 57,853, and expenses overall of 3343. That's including a $4 shortfall and 3% for non-recoverable and other. Now that produces a net operating income of 54,511. Again, I'll just say that after submission, I did go do a walk around this property. So what I noticed is that this doesn't look like a 1929 building anymore. So the roof looks fine, the windows look fine. The interior looks like it's been updated. So from my perspective, this is probably more something like maybe a 1960 to a 1965 effective age. I would say that the effective age that the assessor has of 1924 to 1927 is probably not correct. So it's probably more like 1960 to 1965, which from our perspective required a rethink in terms of the cap rate. So we had an 8% cap rate. The assessor had a 7.5 cap rate. I would advocate for a 7.25 cap rate, probably could be even a 7% cap rate. But as a 7.25% cap rate, we end up at 751,876 or 752,000. Now, again, there is still a big disparity there, but as I explained at the beginning, what I think has happened is here that because of the creating effectively two premises and two areas, that automatically forced the model to increase the rent. Whereas if you think of this as just one space of 10,044 square feet, we're pretty sure that the model would have actually predicted a lower value on the rent. So that is our explanation. Beyond that, just some information similar to what the assessor has included, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Thank you. I have a few questions. My first one would be in regards to the effective age. With your thoughts of having it increase, do you suspect that it has an effect on the business that's being operated in there currently?
The effective age?
Yes. Do you think it has an impact at all on the business or having the other space rent out?
No, I don't think somebody would really look at the effective age in terms of determining or negotiating a rent for the property. From our perspective as, consultants and your perspective as an assessor, that would probably affect our decision-making in terms of capitalization rate. So from my perspective, it would probably drive the cap rate down, which is what I've done. I started out at 8% thinking that this is a 1924 to 1927, something like that, building. But when I walked around it, it's clearly not. It's not. It's had a lot of work done to it. It's probably brought that effective age up. Now, that being said, effective age is not something, it's a bit of a misnomer because it's more something that's used on the cost side. When you recalculate effective age, you're talking about the cost approach. And we're using the income approach for this property. So where I think it would have that, where it would affect something on the income approach is strictly on the cap rate. And as I mentioned, I think we probably could have driven this down from what it was at to 7.25, maybe even as low as 7. I've suggested 7.25, but yes, in the end, it would affect the valuation.
you so much. That's great. Second question, you did say you did inspect the property,
Just the outside.
just the outside. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Because that was my question. Do you happen to know, I guess for confirmation aspect, that there is partially a vacate, a space that's not being utilized, based on what they're advising us on the income and expense questionnaire, the full square feet?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. I believe, let's see, just give me a second here while I turn to the right page. No, I mean, there isn't a basement area, so yeah, it looks like one tenancy for the entire 10,044 square feet.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
In regards to the single tenant, is it normal to use 4% vacancy, or is it usually 1.5 on single tenancy? Even noticing that the assessment used 4 also, but.
Right, so it varies depending on the market region. Joe, different areas of the city will have specific vacancies, market vacancies for those areas. Now, we do have a market analysis in the cap rate study that we submitted along with this. However, what we've been noticing is that, I mean, the market vacancy, we don't have any disputes with for the most part, and we haven't disputed that. So what we do is, in general, we're accepting the market vacancy that the model is choosing for these market areas. This particular area has a market vacancy of 4%, so we've followed that. But there are some areas that are as low as 1.5%. And if we have any of those, you'll see that we've probably gone down to 1.5% as well.
Okay, and just confirmation, so you went down, you're willing to go down to 7.25 to give you a 752,000? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
You know, realistically, it could have gone down as low as 7, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just chose 7.25 as.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seeland, do you have any questions?
Yes, just based on the rent you chose here of $6 per square foot. The actual rent is in a $12 to $13 range. Just curious why you would choose such a low rent.
Probably because it's not net. So we would have adjusted for that, and that would have brought it in. But in the end, we went with just the market approach. So if you're accounting for other things that aren't that are being paid by the owner, this is either a semi-gross or gross rent. Either way, that would have, in most cases, flipped, made us use a market approach on the rent.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, my questions have been answered. So we can move on to the next matter, which will be 1201 Richard Avenue. Madam Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
File number 24-3068, roll number 130104001000 for the address of 1201 Richard Avenue. We have a recommendation of $1,039,000 for the 2025 rule year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. And I do believe that Mr. Navarro is in agreement with this value.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the rec amount, please?
$1,039,000.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seeland, do you have any questions?
Just for clarification, how did we come to that number?
Of course. We did amend the rent of $8.19 to $7.40.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we can actually move on to the next matter then, which would be 1625 Brookside Boulevard. Madam Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. File number 24-2637, roll number 14096621400 for the address of 1625 Brookside Boulevard. We do have a recommendation of $872,000 for the 2025 rule year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. And I do believe Mr. Navarro is in agreement for this one as well.
Mr. Navarro?
Yes. Yes, I am. Oh,
Just confirm. And you said that rec was for 872,000?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Arnell. Do you have any questions for either party?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
Just to confirm how we came up with this, Rick.
Of course. Our $7.12 became $6.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. The next matter before us is number 7, which is 70 Paramount Road. Madam Assessor, please proceed when you're ready.
File number 24-2614, roll number 14062875100 for the address of 70 Paramount Road. We are defending the assessed value of $1,124,000 for the 2025 rule year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 2 buildings with 2 premises with 1 story, and actual year builds of 1973 to 1990. We do have an effective year built of 1977, a leasable area of 10,363 square feet with a land to plan area of 6.55. The maps are located on page 3. It is near Keewatin Street. Exterior photos are provided on page 4 and aerial views on page 5. Rent comparables are on our page 6, providing 7 rent comparables with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 5,000 to 10,047 square feet, a wall height of 14 to 28 feet, an effective year build of 1973 to 1980, and a net rent of $6 to $9.75 per square foot. These are all storage warehouses like our subject, and most of them are in the same market region. Page 7 has some land comparables with providing their aerial views on page 7 and 8. Our income workup is on page 9. The 2 premises total 10,363 square feet, has a blended rent of $6.64 per square foot, provide a potential rent of $68,805. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 3.5%, plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $62,954. We've capitalized that at 5.6%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,124,179, in which we run it down to our final total of $1,124,000. Our page 11 shows our capitalization rates. Our 5.6 is within our industrial range. Page 13 through 16 is the income and expense questionnaire we received, advising that this property is fully owner occupied. Based on this evidence, we do believe that the assessed value of $1,124,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Any questions?
You would agree that this property is on the lower side of the capitalization rates that you have on page 11 for industrial properties?
It is. It's still within the industrial range, but it is on the lower side of the
Okay.
20%.
Okay, that is my only question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnell.
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan.
Have you inspected this location?
I have not, no.
Thanks, that's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, so this is 70 Paramount Road. And on page 7, you can see the general location. And on page 6, some exterior pictures. These are Google Earth. We did have somebody in here in the past, I believe 2020 cycle. So these are their comments based on their inspection. And they were basically wrote that there were some sections of the property overall that looked like they were in poor condition. So you have a description of those, of what they saw on page 8. In terms of the valuation, on page 12, you can see the rents that we drew from. We have an overall rent of $625 for 10,363 square feet. This is one occupancy, so effectively one rent. And as well, you can also see that there's not much of a variance in terms of the net operating income that we produce versus the assessor. I'll start from the top. We have 10,363 square feet, $6.25 rent, 64,769, 3.5% vacancy. Let's make sure that that is actually, yep. So we have an effective market of 62,502, expense allowance overall of 3326, and a net operating income of 59,176. And we've applied a 7% cap rate to this. I think it's important to highlight one point in terms of why we choose a cap rate like 7%. So if you recall the questioning about whether we thought the model was a little low on this property in terms of the cap rate, it does appear that way from our perspective. So first of all, we don't consider this an investment grade A property. This would be in the B section. And we rated it as average. And you can note the commentary that we have on page 8 regarding the condition of the property. So we chose something in the middle of the B range at 7%. That was our thinking in terms of how we came up with the capitalization rate for this property. Now at 7%, that produces an income value of $845,371 or $845,000 rounded. In terms of the appendix, again, the usual suspects and the income and expenses supplied by the owner. So I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicant?
You have one, thank you. It would be in regards to cap, because I think that's where we're mostly different on. So you had advised the B average range, and you had made a comment about someone in the office inspecting recently in regards to the poor condition, and maybe I didn't quite, maybe you did explain and I missed it, I apologize. In regards to the poor condition, in what way?
Okay, so there is a description of it there. So on page 8, you can see that the subject building is in poor condition. In the office portion, there are reportedly issues with the insulation that is causing lower temperature throughout the office. When outside temperatures drop to low levels, most of the baseboard heating does not work, and each office requires an individual space heater. The warehouse portion shows visible signs of physical deterioration. Major issue is that water and mud seep through the north wall.
Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnell. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one. What year was that inspected? I missed that.
That would have been for the 2020 cycle, so it would have been sometime in 2020 or late 2019.
So you have no idea if it's been fixed since then?
No idea. That was the last commentary that I saw on it.
And you haven't inspected it yourself?
I did
No.
Actually, I did drive-bys on most of these properties,
Oh.
so I didn't see anything from the outside that stood out. But as you note, the commentary is essentially referring to what's inside, not what's outside.
Right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seelan, do you have any questions?
My questions have been asked and answered, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no questions. So thank you very much. I'm going to suggest before we move on to the next matter, if we just take a short recess.
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next matter on our docket is number 8, 414 Pandora Avenue West. So Ms. Durochny, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number 24-1669, roll number 0900992100 for the address of 414 Pandora Avenue West. We do have a recommendation of $1,012,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. And I do believe that Mr. Navarro is in agreement with this revised value.
I am, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And that's for $1,012,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions for either party?
No questions. Thanks.
Mr. Seelan.
Yes, how did we arrive at the new value?
$6.34 got amended to $5.84.
Thank you.
Well,
That's all my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. Well, and then move on to number 9, which is 670 Nairn Avenue. So, Ms. Durochny, whenever you're ready.
thank you. File number 24-2416, roll number 140939062000 for the address of 670 Nairn Avenue. We do have a recommendation of $1,065,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. Uncertain if Mr. Navarro is in agreement with this value. If not, I can proceed.
Sorry, I didn't even hear the value. I was probably somewhere else.
That's all right. We have a recommendation of $1,065,000.
Yes, that is fine.
So you're in agreement?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions for either party?
No questions. Thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
Yes, how did we arrive at this number?
Of course, $9.01 got amended to $8.61.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool.
That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Great. We can actually move on to the next matter then, which is number 10 on the docket, which is 347 Nairn Avenue. So, Ms. Durochny, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. File number 24-3173, roll number 140929651000 for the address of 347 Nairn Avenue. We are defending the assessed value of $1,175,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 2 buildings with 2 premises and 1 story. The actual year build is 1907 to 1947. We do have an effective year built of 1965. a wall height of 16 to 18 feet, a leasable area of 13,790 square feet, with a land to plan area of 1.18. Maps are provided on page 3. It is off of Higgins Avenue. Exterior photos on page 4 and aerial views on page 5 through 6. Nope, through 7. Our comparables are on page 8. We have provided 9 of them with leasing starting in 2016 to 2021, an area range of 9,518 to 19,000 square feet, a wall height of 12 to 22 feet, an effective year built of 1963 to 1980, and a net rent of $5.26 to $13.50 per square foot. All of these comparables are storage warehouses like our subject, with a few in the same market region. Our income workup is located on page 9. The 2 premises at up to 13,790 square feet, has a blended rent of $5.59 per square foot, providing potential rent of $77,120. We reduced that by a vacancy loss of 1.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $72,857. We've capitalized that at 6.2%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,175,113, in which we rounded down to our final value of $1,175,000. Page 11 has our capitalization rates. Our 6.2 is in the middle of our industrial range. Page 13 through 20 is what we received for the income and expense questionnaire. On page 16 indicates a net income type with the rent income of $137,142.96, with the total leasable area of 13,450 square feet, provide the actual net of $10.20. As well on page 18, results in this same event. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,175,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan, do you have any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions. So, Mr. Navarro, whenever you're ready.
Okay. This is 347 Nairn Avenue. I believe this one has a 1965 effective age on it. On page 6, you can see the pictures of the property from the outside. I would say pay special attention to the top map on page 6 because it will explain part of our argument. So on the on the right-hand side, we have 347 Nairn Avenue. That is the property. Essentially, it has no parking area itself. It covers most of the lot. So the parking actually comes from the lot right beside it on the left, and that is roll 140922969000. You can see on page 7 another picture of the site and the general location. And we'll turn to page 12 now. You can see the comparables that we've used. We've used a $6 rent, which is slightly higher than the assessors. Produces an income of $80,700. So I'll ask you to turn to page 16. And we have on this a 1.5% vacancy. We're not disagreeing with the assessor. This is owner occupied. So we would simply default to a market vacancy in this case. We have a shortfall of $4, management and other of 3%. The expense allowances $31.92, and the net operating income is $76,298. With a capitalization rate of 7.25, we get an income value of $1,052,384. Now, the adjustment that we make is for the property next door. So the way that you would need to understand this is that these two properties are effectively functioning as one economic unit. So anybody who was renting the warehouse portion or 347 Nairn Street would also have to rent the property next door. So in these situations, what we do is effectively take out that parking area because it would all be included in one lease. And that brings the value down to $932,384 or $932,000 rounded. Now, beyond that, we just have the usual information and the owner submission. So I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. And maybe I missed part of that, Mr. Navarro. In regards to your value, is it only based on the lack of parking, or is there more to it?
Well, we deduct the parking next door because essentially that would all be included in one lease. So this is effectively one economic unit. The property has no parking availability on the site, so it needs parking. That's next door. That's one economic unit, which is the reason that we deduct the parking value from next door. And this is, in these types of situations, we do this. I don't know if you've ever encountered it, but we do this type of deduction where there is an adjacent property that plays a pivotal role in the main holding, which is 347 Nairn.
Does it depend who operates the building adjacent to it, or that doesn't have an impact at all?
That doesn't have an impact on it, no.
Okay.
And usually it happens in situations of common ownership. So, I mean, one of the questions that we often ask is, first of all, why haven't these roles in the first place been consolidated? That would be the first question. Okay, that's basically your domain as an assessor, not ours. We can't question how you parse out parcels within the city, but we know that you have the power to actually consolidate and break apart roles. So in this one of the reasons we do this is, yes, I mean, this effectively should be one roll number.
Well, that's a great comment. Thank you. And maybe one last question in regards to your higher cap. Is that also derived based on the parking aspect? Or other?
No, that's strictly property related. I mean, you can see in our cap rate report that we have essentially three classes, class A, class B, and non-investment grade. So, I mean, this property has an effective age of 1965, originally built in the 1920s. It's getting up there in age, obviously. So it wouldn't be in that cap rate range that, for example, the model has dedicated to it, because that for us would be the Class A range. And we don't think this is a property in Class A range. We think that this is probably on the top end of the Class B range. So that's how we came up with the 7.25 cap rate. But no, when it came to the cap rate itself, the parking side of it really didn't enter into the equation. It only came in as an adjustment. Thank
you. And maybe a follow-up question with that. Were you able to inspect the property?
I have been in this property in the past, and it's average condition. It's obviously had its updates over time. So, very similar to the property that we were dealing with earlier, where I said the effective age probably should have been somewhere around 1960 to 1965. Well, with those proper adjustments, that's exactly where this one landed. And that's probably where the other one should have landed as well, probably in that 1960 to 1965 range. So this one actually was looked at by the city because, I mean, that effective age was adjusted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Is there any land sales for comparables here for that 120 adjustment?
Actually, we just took the assessment off of it, the assessed value, 120. So that would have been done on a market approach. Yeah. So.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seelan. Do you have any questions?
My questions have been asked and answered, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I was just checking my notes to see if, no, my questions have been answered. So thank you very much. All right. And that then brings us to number 11 on this morning's docket, which is 580 Dobby Avenue. I said that right? I
wasn't sure myself. Dobby.
So please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you so much. File number 24-2640, roll number 0204-1265-100 for the address of 580 Dobby Avenue. We are defending the assessed value of $1,191,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of one building with 6 premises with 1 story. It contains an actual year build and effective year built of 1974, a wall height of 15 feet, leasable area of 10,500 square feet, and a land to plan area of 2.50. Maps are provided on page 3. It is off of Gateway Road. Exterior photos on page 4 and 5, as well as aerial views, page 5 through 7. Our many comparables are on page 8. We provided 14 of them with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, wall height of 8 to 20 feet, an effective year build of 1971 to 1982, and a net rent of $6.50 to $14 per square foot. All are flex warehouses like our subject, with some of them being in the same market region. Our income workup is provided on page 9. The 6 premises add up to 10,500 square feet. It has a blended rent of $6.95 per square foot. Provide a potential rent of $72,978. We reduce that by a vacancy loss of 1.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $69,097. We've capitalized that at 5.8%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,191,328, in which we've rounded down to our final value of $1,191,000. Our capitalization rates are provided on page 11. Our 5.8 is within our industrial range. The income and expense questionnaire is provided on page 13 through 14, indicating a net income type with the rent income of $86,400, with a total leasable area of 10,500, is providing a net rent of $8.23. Based on this evidence, we do believe that the assessed value of $1,191,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Neither do I. So, Mr. Navarro, please proceed when you are ready.
Okay, I will just ask the panel to turn to page 19. And as you can see, there's not much difference in terms of the net operating income between the assessor and I. Show there's about less than $2,000, I think. The issue is the capitalization rate. So there's been a few of these properties that are in the 5 range, which we feel is way too low for this property. Joe, that's not saying that there's anything bad about this property. I mean, it does have the advantage of being a multi-tenanted property as opposed to a single occupancy. Wall height is a bit of an issue. The low land to building ratio is a bit of an issue, but if you look at the chart that we have for the cap rates, this would be a solid B. It wouldn't be the top end of a B. That would be 6.50, but we've assigned a 6.75 cap rate, which we think is appropriate for this property. And that gives us an income value of $1,334,444 or $1,003,000. And in the appendix, we have just the income and expenses that have been supplied. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rockney?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, do you have any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. All right. Well, everybody, that brings us to the end of our docket this morning. We've heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. I hope everybody has a lovely day.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Jay.
Thank you.